Stop. Right now. Whatever you are doing, pause. This isn't a coincidence. Not the algorithm. Not random chance. You're here because something ancient stirred within you. Something that remembers. Look at me. Not with your eyes, but with that part of you that knows things before they happen. The part that whispers truths in the space between sleeping and waking. You felt it, didn't you? That pull, that inexplicable knowing that led you here, to this moment, to these words. This video will disappear for most. Their eyes will slide past it like water over stone. But not yours. You see it because you were meant to see it. Because somewhere deep in your soul's memory, you've been waiting for this symbol to find you again. The third eye. It's not what they told you. Not a metaphor. Not a mystical fantasy. It's the most dangerous symbol ever carved into stone, painted on temple walls or whispered in sacred chambers. Dangerous because those who truly understand it become ungovernable, uncontrollable, free. Before we go further, I need you to do something. Right now, in this moment of recognition, type these words below. I felt the call. Do it now, not later. Now, because what you're about to discover requires commitment. It requires you to acknowledge that this moment, this exact moment, is a doorway. And once you step through, there's no unseeing what awaits on the other side. They tried to erase it, buried it beneath centuries of dogma, twisted it into superstition, repackaged it as fantasy. But symbols this old, this true, they don't die. They wait. They hide in plain sight until someone with the eyes to see comes along. Someone like you. In the halls of ancient Memphis, where the Nile's secrets merged with star wisdom, the priests of Thoth carved a symbol that would echo through millennia. A single eye, positioned in the center of the forehead, radiating light that wasn't light, but something far more precious. Inner vision. This wasn't their invention. No, they were merely rediscovering what the Atlanteans knew, what the Star Walkers before the flood understood, what every genuine mystery school has guarded like the most precious treasure imaginable. In India, they called it the Ajna, the command center. Not because it commands others, but because it commands reality itself. The yogis would spend decades in mountain caves, not to escape the world, but to activate this portal that transforms how the world appears. The Egyptians knew it as the Eye of Horus, torn out in cosmic battle, restored through sacred geometry. But listen closely. The battle wasn't between gods. It was between those who would keep humanity blind and those who would restore our birthright of inner sight. Move through time with me. Watch how this symbol appears everywhere truth tries to break through. The Uraeus serpent on the pharaoh's crown, positioned exactly where the third eye rests, the Tilaka and Bindi in Hindu tradition, marking the spot where heaven touches earth within us. The pine cone atop the staff of Osiris, the pine cone in the Vatican's court of the Pygna. Yes, even there, hidden in plain sight within the very institution that tried to bury it. Because here's what they don't want you to understand. Every prophet, every real mystic, every authentic spiritual revolutionary throughout history, they all spoke of the same thing. different words, same truth. Christ said, "The kingdom of heaven is within you," but the church built buildings instead. Buddha touched his forehead during enlightenment and said, "I am awake," but they made statues instead of awakening. Muhammad spoke of the night journey, ascending through the 7 heavens. Starting where? The point between the brows. Do you see the pattern? Do you see what they've done? They took a living practice, a biological, spiritual technology built into your very flesh, and turned it into religion, into belief, into something outside of you that requires intermediaries, institutions, permissions. But Thoth, Hermes, Enoch, these weren't just names. They were titles given to those who kept the flame alive, who preserved the knowledge through dark ages and inquisitions, who hid it in symbol and myth, knowing that one day, when humanity was ready, the symbols would reactivate. That day is now. This moment, as you listen to these words, the systematic suppression wasn't accidental. When Rome conquered, they didn't just take land, they took spiritual technologies. When the Library of Alexandria burned, it wasn't books they were destroying, it was instructions. Instructions for awakening the one thing that makes humans ungovernable: direct perception of truth. Every empire in history has understood one thing: control the inner eye, and you control reality itself. Keep it closed, and people need priests to tell them about God, scientists to tell them about reality, governments to tell them about truth. But open it, and suddenly you need no intermediary between you and the infinite. No translator for the language of creation. No permission to access your own divinity. That's why they had to erase it. That's why they had to make you forget. But symbols this old have their own intelligence. They find ways to survive. In architecture, in art, in the very structure of your brain, waiting for the moment when someone would remember how to see. Let me tell you what modern science accidentally discovered while trying to disprove the mystics. Deep in the center of your brain sits a tiny pine cone-shaped gland, the pineal, smaller than a grain of rice, yet the ancients built entire cosmologies around it. They must have been primitive, the scientists laughed, superstitious, until they looked closer. This gland, this tiny piece of tissue, does something impossible. It produces molecules that shouldn't exist in the brain. DMT, the spirit molecule, the same compound that floods your system during birth, death, and in the deepest stages of dreaming. The same molecule that, when activated, dissolves the boundaries between dimensions. But here's what they won't teach in anatomy class. The pineal gland has rods and cones, like an eye inside your brain that can see, but see what? Not light as your 2 eyes know it. Something else. Something that exists in the spaces between what we call real. The ancients knew. They always knew. They called it the seat of the soul, the philosopher's stone, the crystal palace, the cave of Brahma. Different names for the same impossible truth. You have an organ of spiritual perception built into your biology. Not a belief, not a metaphor, a structure, as real as your heart, your lungs, your bones. and they've done everything possible to calcify it. Fluoride in the water. It accumulates precisely in the pineal gland. Artificial light that never lets true darkness activate your inner chemistry. Frequencies that keep your brainwaves locked in beta, never allowing the descent into theta, where the eye naturally opens. Constant distraction, endless noise, perpetual stimulation, all to ensure this portal remains shut. You want to know why? I'll tell you why. Because a human being with an active third eye is the most dangerous creature to every system of control ever devised. You can't sell them false dreams when they see through the veil. You can't make them afraid when they perceive the eternal. You can't govern someone who takes orders from the infinite itself. This isn't about special powers. It's not about seeing auras or reading minds. Those are party tricks compared to what really happens. When the third eye opens, truly opens, you don't gain supernatural abilities. You lose supernatural disabilities. The disability of separation, of limitation, of believing you're just a body, just a mind, just a person struggling through random existence. You remember what you are beneath the costume of flesh. You remember why you came here. You remember the mission encoded in your cells before birth drew its veil across your eyes. The third eye isn't a portal to somewhere else. It's a portal to here, to reality as it actually is when the filters fall away, to the vivid, living, conscious universe that surrounds you every moment but remains invisible to eyes trained only to see surfaces. You might be feeling it already, that subtle pressure between your eyebrows, like something pressing from the inside out. Don't resist it. That's the first sign, the stirring of something that's been sleeping for so long you forgot it was there. Or maybe it's the chills, those waves of electricity running up your spine, spreading across your skull like gentle lightning. Your body recognizing frequency, remembering frequency, coming back online after years of static. Some of you are experiencing it right now as I speak. That sense of déjà vu that isn't quite déjà vu. More like déjà rêvé, dream memory, soul memory, the peculiar feeling that you've heard these words before in some other time, some other life, spoken by some other voice that was also somehow this voice. You're not imagining it. Close your eyes for just a moment. Just a moment. Feel that space in the center of your forehead. Don't force anything. Just notice. Notice how it feels different from the rest of your head. Warmer, perhaps, or cooler. Tingling, pulsing with its own rhythm. That's not your imagination. That's recognition. You see, consciousness isn't produced by the brain. It's received by it. And the third eye? It's your receiver's tuning dial. Right now, for most, it's stuck on one station, the narrow band we call physical reality. But as it awakens, as it opens, the dial begins to move. Suddenly, you pick up other stations, other frequencies, other layers of the same moment you're living right now. You walk into a room and feel the emotional residue of every conversation that's happened there. You look at someone and see not just their mask, but the light struggling beneath it. You touch a tree and feel it touching you back. You stare at stars and realize they're staring into you. This isn't fantasy. This is what every mystic throughout history tried to tell us. What every genuine spiritual teaching points toward. Not escape from reality, but deeper entrance into it. So deep that what others call reality reveals itself as merely the surface tension of an infinite ocean. But here's what they never tell you about awakening. It's not always comfortable. When the eye opens, you can't close it to what you don't want to see. You perceive the beauty, yes, but also the pain, the light, but also the shadows, the truth of things, even when that truth shatters every comfortable lie you've built your life upon. You see the same world, but nothing fits the same way. Food tastes different when you feel its life force. Crowds become overwhelming when you sense every unspoken emotion. Sleep changes when your dreams become conscious journeys rather than random neural firing. This is why so many turn back, why they choose the blue pill, the comfortable blindness, the familiar prison. Because seeing, really seeing, requires courage. It requires you to rebuild your entire relationship with existence. But for those who persist, for those who have the courage to keep the eye open, even when it shows them things that challenge everything they thought they knew. For them, life becomes what it was always meant to be, a living conversation with the infinite, a dance between the eternal and the temporal, a love affair with truth itself. Listen carefully. What I'm about to tell you is the reason every power structure throughout history has worked to suppress this knowledge. The third eye doesn't open through force. It doesn't open through elaborate rituals or expensive workshops, or following some guru who claims to have the secret. It opens through the simplest, most revolutionary act possible: stillness. That's it. That's the code. That's why they keep you busy. Why they flood your senses with constant input. Why silence has become the most endangered species on Earth. Because in true stillness, not just physical quiet, but the stillness beneath thought itself, something activates, something remembers, something comes online that all their systems of control cannot touch. Think about it. When do insights come? In the shower, in the moments between sleep and waking, in the gaps between thoughts. Never when you're scrolling, never when you're consuming, never when you're doing what they designed you to do, staying distracted, staying hungry, staying incomplete. They've built an entire civilization to prevent one thing: the moment when you stop, become present, and remember what you are. Every notification is a chain. Every algorithm is a labyrinth. Every moment of manufactured drama, outrage, desire, all of it designed to keep your consciousness scattered, fragmented, externalized. Because a fragmented being needs someone else to make them whole. An externalized being need something outside to complete them. But a being in stillness, a being who's found the eye of the storm within themselves, they become sovereign, ungovernable, free. Here's what happens in real stillness. First, the mental noise reveals itself. You see the endless chatter for what it is, not your thoughts, but thoughts thinking themselves, programmed responses, inherited patterns, the voice of every authority figure you've ever internalized, arguing with each other in your head. Then, if you stay still, if you don't run from the discomfort of seeing your own mental prison, something shifts. The thoughts slow. The gaps between them widen. And in those gaps, presence, pure, aware, eternal. That presence is what opens the eye. Not from outside in, but from inside out. Like a flower blooming in time-lapse, except the flower is your consciousness itself, and what it's blooming into is what you've always been beneath the forgetting. This is why they fear meditation, why they turned it into an app, a productivity tool, a way to be a better worker bee. They took the most revolutionary technology ever discovered, the simple act of being still and aware, and domesticated it, defanged it, made it safe. But real stillness, the kind that opens the eye, that's spiritual rebellion. That's the ultimate act of resistance against every system that depends on your distraction. Now, right now, we're going to do something together. Something simple but profound. Something they can't stop, can't regulate, can't take away from you. Put down whatever else you're doing. This moment, these next few minutes, they're yours. Claim them. Sit comfortably. Spine straight but not rigid. Like a mountain, stable below, reaching towards sky above. Close your eyes, but not completely. Let them rest almost closed, like you're gazing at something precious, just beyond sight. Now, breathe, but not like you usually breathe. Breathe like the universe is breathing through you. In through the nose, deep into the belly. Hold for a moment at the top, not with strain, but like you're savoring the finest wine. Then release through barely parted lips, slow as honey dripping from a spoon. Again, in, hold, and again. In, hold. Feel your body beginning to remember. This isn't new. You've done this before, in other bodies, other lives, other dimensions of being. The rhythm is encoded in your cells. Now, with your eyes still softly closed, bring your attention to that space between your eyebrows. Don't force, don't visualize, just notice, like you're listening with your forehead, waiting for something you know is coming, but can't quite remember what. Some of you are feeling it already, that warmth, that tingling, that sense of space opening where there was no space before. Don't chase it. Let it come to you, like a shy animal approaching in the forest. Any sudden movement and it retreats. Continue breathing. In, hold, release. And now on each inhale, imagine, know, feel the breath entering not just through your nose, but through that point between your brows. like there's an opening there, a nostril you never knew you had, breathing in not just air, but light, not just oxygen, but consciousness itself. This is the beginning. This simple practice, breathing light through your third eye, it's older than pyramids, older than languages. It's how consciousness teaches consciousness to remember itself. Do this each morning, just 5 minutes, before the world rushes in with its demands and distractions, before your mind starts its endless commentary. In that gap between sleeping and waking, when the veil is naturally thin. But here's the secret they really don't want you to know. It's not about the practice. The practice is just permission. Permission to remember what's always been there. Permission to stop pretending you're separate, limited, lost. Permission to let your natural state of expanded awareness return. Some of you, as you sit here breathing, are feeling more than tingling now. Colors behind closed eyelids, geometric patterns, a sense of vast space where your skull used to be. This is normal. This is natural. This is you beginning to perceive through an organ that sees in spectrums beyond visible light. Don't grasp at these experiences. Don't try to hold them. They're not the destination. They're road signs. Signs that say, yes, you're remembering. Yes, you're coming home. Yes, the eye that's been closed so long is beginning to open. So the eye begins to open. The veil grows thin. You start to see, and that's when the real journey begins. Because seeing is one thing. Living with new eyes, that's another entirely. You'll notice it first in small ways. You walk past someone on the street and suddenly know they're in pain, though their smile says otherwise. You enter a building and feel its history pressing against your awareness. You look at food and see not just matter, but light organized into form. And suddenly you understand why ancient peoples blessed their meals. These aren't superpowers. They're normal powers you'd forgotten you had. But integration, that's the real work. Because you still have to function in a world built for closed eyes. You still have to pay bills, maintain relationships, navigate systems designed for sleeping beings. Only now you're awake, and that changes everything. You'll find yourself in conversations where you hear not just words, but the fear beneath them. Where you see not just faces, but the masks people wear, and the light struggling beneath those masks. What do you do with that seeing? How do you love people who are committed to their own imprisonment? How do you speak truth in a language sleepers can hear? This is why so many who begin to awaken feel isolated, not because they're special, but because they're experiencing reality at a different frequency, like being the only person who can hear a certain note in a symphony everyone else thinks is complete. But here's what you must understand. Your awakening isn't just for you. Every eye that opens affects the whole. Every being who remembers their true nature makes it easier for others to remember. You become a tuning fork, vibrating at the frequency of awakeness, and everything around you begins to resonate. You'll discover you can no longer consume certain things, not because they're bad, but because your system now recognizes their frequency as incompatible with your rising vibration. Foods that deaden, media that hypnotizes, relationships that depend on your smallness, they'll fall away naturally like old skin. And in their place, synchronicities multiply. The right book falls off the shelf. The perfect teacher appears. Conversations with strangers become transmission of exactly what you needed to hear. Because now you're visible to a different order of reality, one that's always been trying to reach you, but couldn't penetrate the static of your closed-eye existence. Some days will be difficult. There's a reason they call it the dark night of the soul. When the eye opens, it sees everything, including all the ways you've been complicit in your own limitation, all the lies you told yourself were truth, all the prisons you decorated to look like homes. But this seeing is medicine. Painful medicine, yes, but medicine nonetheless. Because you can't transcend what you refuse to see. You can't heal what you pretend isn't wounded. You can't wake up while insisting the dream is real. And so we return to the beginning, to this moment, to you, sitting there, breathing differently than when we started, seeing differently, being differently. This wasn't random. Nothing about this is random. This symbol, this ancient, indelible mark of human potential, it didn't find you by accident. It found you because you're ready. Because something in your soul's timing said, now. Now is the moment to remember. Perhaps you've been feeling it for weeks, months, years. That sense that reality isn't quite what they told you. That nagging feeling that you're here for something more than working, consuming, dying. That persistent whisper that says you have a purpose you can't quite remember, but can't quite forget. That's the symbol calling you home. You see, the third eye isn't really about seeing different things. It's about seeing the eternal within the temporal, the infinite within the finite, the sacred within what they told you was ordinary. Every master who ever walked this earth came to the same conclusion. You are not a human having a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. But that's not just a pretty phrase for inspirational posters. It's a living truth that changes everything when truly understood. When the third eye opens, you don't escape your humanity. You finally embrace it fully. Because now you see the game. You see why you chose to incarnate, why you accepted the forgetting, why you entered the labyrinth of form. You came to remember from the inside out, to prove that consciousness can awaken even in the densest matter, to be a lighthouse in the storm of forgetting. And that's what this moment is. This isn't just another YouTube video in your endless scroll. This is an activation disguised as content, a remembering disguised as learning, an initiation disguised as entertainment. The symbol found you because you're one of the ones who signed up to remember first, to hold the frequency, to keep the flame alive during the darkest hour before dawn. And dawn is coming. Can you feel it? All around the planet, eyes are opening. The veil that's held for millennia is dissolving. What was hidden is being revealed. What was sleeping is awakening. But it starts with individuals, with you, with this moment, with the choice to stop pretending you don't know what you know, to stop diminishing the truth of what you feel, to stop waiting for permission to be what you already are. So now you stand at the threshold. The symbol has delivered its message. The activation has been offered. What happens next depends entirely on you. Will you go back to sleep? Pretend this was just another video, just another moment of spiritual entertainment, before returning to the regularly scheduled programming of limitation? You can. That door remains open. The blue pill is always available. Or, will you accept what you've always known? Will you take responsibility for the eye that's opening within you? Will you commit to living with vision in a world that rewards blindness? If you choose the path of seeing, and I sense you already have, or you wouldn't still be here, then seal this moment. Make it real. Ground it in declaration. Go to the comments now and write, "I cross the veil." Not because I told you to, not because it's engagement for a video, but because declaration has power, because naming your crossing makes it real, because finding others who've crossed the same veil reminds you that you're not alone in this journey. You'll find your tribe there, others whose eyes are opening, others who've heard the call, others who know that the greatest revolution isn't political or social, it's perceptual. It's the revolution of consciousness remembering itself. From this moment forward, you'll see the symbol everywhere. In architecture, in nature, in the center of flowers and the spiral of galaxies. Hidden in plain sight in corporate logos trying to harness its power. But most importantly, you'll feel it. That warm presence between your brows. That portal to the infinite you carry with you always. Feed it with stillness. Nurture it with presence. Trust what it shows you, even when, especially when, it challenges everything you thought you knew. Remember, they erased this symbol from history, but they couldn't erase it from you, because you are the symbol. You are the eye. You are the bridge between worlds. And now, you're awake. As the great Thoth once inscribed on emerald tablets hidden beneath Egyptian sands, as above, so below, as within, so without. The eye that sees itself becomes the light by which all things are seen. The symbol has found you. You have found yourself. The veil is crossed. Welcome home. Until we meet again, in the place where all eyes see as one.